Okay, so what I'm doing here this morning, this is a shoulder from the hog that we butchered yesterday. And what I'm getting started at here is just peeling off the lard, the outside lard. And you can see sort of down to the meat line there. And then we're going to later on, we're going to cut this into strips like that, and we're going to peel the lard off of that skin. And you can see the pile of lard that I've got right there. When the other help comes along, we're going to get the meat grinder going. Well, first of all, grind the lard, and then we're going to cook and render out the lard. So these hogs, of course, I've been raising freezer beef for 10 or 11 years, I guess, something like that, and been quite popular. I do about, last year did 49, this year I'm doing 45 that I sell them live weight to customers, and for so much a pound live weight, and deliver them to the slaughterhouse, and then the customer gets it processed at the slaughterhouse as to how they like it processed. I've had so much request for hogs, to also do hogs, so I have got into raising them, a few of them, and also have a connection with an Amish guy in Kentucky where I'm also buying, I'm buying some hogs and then take them to the slaughterhouse and basically the same way that I do it. But I can't process a hog for you because we're not inspected. To be able to do what we're doing here today, which is strictly for the family, we can't do that for customers unless we built a different facility, and we would have to become government compliant to be able to do that kind of thing. But I can sell a customer a live hog, just like I do the live beef, take it to a slaughterhouse who is government compliant with inspections, and then they can get the meat processed how they like it and put it in their freezer for their own use. And so, yeah, just a little bit of extra income. So what I'm doing here on this right here, there's a little bit of meat. So we're not terribly particular that can have absolutely no meat in the lard, because our family, we all like cracklings, and or at least a good part of us do like cracklings. And so if you have a little bit of meat in there, it makes the cracklings a little bit more meaty. You know, it's just a little more wholesome instead of just plain lard. And then on the other hand, you also leave just a little bit of meat in the sausage, because if you make the sausage too dry, you don't really have anything to freeze, and to fry it with, and you sure don't want to have to add vegetable oil or something to it, to some good homemade hog grease where the sausage is being fried in. And so some of the others are going to come along, and we're going to cut this in strips, and then we're going to peel all the lard off of it and separate the skin off of that. But to keep the whole thing going right now, I'm just trying to get them skinned and get ready for the part that I just did here. Is a little bit more tedious and a little more difficult, and that's the reason I came a little early, because I'm experienced at it. I can do that kind of thing, and the others will come along and they will take their knives and debone every bit of that.
Now, talk to us a little bit and tell us what cracklins is and how you eat them or cook them or what that is.
Okay, so cracklins. We've all heard of Cracklin cornbread. It's a famous food here in the South. The old timers would basically would not have had a meat grinder. They would basically take a piece of lard like this right here. Cut that off there. And they would, I think that's maybe even too thick. They would cut it like that. And leave that intact. And now then I'm gonna cut it in little strips. And then it would be basically be about the same as dicing up vegetables. You make these little pieces like that. Now that is typically the way it was originally done here in the South. Most families would remember doing this. And then they would take these little cubes and put them in a kettle and deep fry them until they're crisp brown and delicious food. My dad came from, like I've said earlier, Dad came from Saskatchewan, Canada. they didn't do it this way. They would take these whole pieces of lard and put them through the meat grinder with a, so this is Dad's collection of grinders here, grinder plates, and that makes the various different sizes of sausage depending on how coarse you want. But then the one I'm after here, which is sort of dirty yet, we're gonna have to clean it up, but see the holes there? That basically simulates the same thing what I was doing by cutting it up. A little bit smaller, but this grinds it much faster than chopping it up like I was slicing it up there. The same way, when that lard is put through that, then those are fried, deep fried until they're crisp in their own lard in this cast iron kettle, which we're going to be doing later today, and that's what makes cracklings. And then so later on, when we get those cracklings boiled down, we will, of course, we cook with wood. Whoever's in charge of it has to pay close attention as to how hot the fire is. It's very easy to overcook these cracklings and make them so crisp that they'll break your teeth to chew them. So you want to be real careful. And then they're very strong and very unedible to eat like that. But
so you eat them. You can eat them by themselves. You don't add them to something.
So most of us, that was traditional with my dad's family, ate them for breakfast along with maybe boiled oatmeal and sorghum in the oatmeal, or of course here in the South, crackling cornbread is very common. Our family has never done as much crackling cornbread as has been consumed here in the South, and very famous and very much talked about crackling cornbread. But we like to eat them along with oatmeal or maybe cream of wheat or grits, along with a piece of whole wheat bread, and you put them on a little saucer, and you just sort of squeeze that piece of bread onto them, a little salt and pepper on those cracklings, along with the oatmeal or the grits or cream of wheat. Absolutely delicious. It's like putting diesel fuel in a tractor. I mean, it makes you go all day. I love it. I love it. A lot of people say it's so unhealthy, it's so unhealthy. Well, it might be, but I think we're living just as long as everybody else is, not eating that. I've always said, how stupid can it be to fry your sausage and throw that grease out and put vegetable oil in the skillet to fry your eggs? Why not fry your eggs in that same grease? It's so delicious. Well, everybody says it's so healthy, but the old timers did it, and I still like to do it. Even though we're not inspected by the health department, we are very concerned about being clean and neat. So grandson Jacob, how are you this morning?
Good.
Are you ready to work? Okay. Take the hose there and run some hot water and clean your hands a little bit, and roll your sleeves back. I'm gonna get you a knife and get you started. So what I'm gonna do here is split the skin. It's sort of a little bit softer on the inside of the leg, and then and there's not much fat right there. Pretty easy to just start skinning it off.
How old are you, Jacob?
15.
Have you done this before?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's helped me several times. My grandson, and I certainly want him to learn to do this. So we're butchering here today, and we're actually just doing one hog today. Some of the family needed some meat, but really the reason that we are doing this butchering is this is the way we grew up. This is what we know. This is the way we have sourced our meat. We're not only trying to preserve the history and the heritage of what our parents and grandparents taught us, but it's what we eat. We don't go to the store to buy meat, which I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. It definitely is not a bad thing. People have to do that. Everybody can't butcher, but it is our way of survival. And what more wholesome, good nourishing food than to raise your own animals, whether it's beef, hogs, and slaughter them yourself, and family get-togethers and work together and make all these different, what should I call it, dishes, all these different things that we're going to make today, everything from link sausage to scrapple, to liverwurst scrapple, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Morning, Nathan.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good. You went to the fishing trip last night.
Did I?
Yeah,
Missed the fishing trip.
We got 1 out of 5 of you.
Well, them boys are going to get hungry going fishing, and 5 of them going fishing and spend half the night at it and get 1 fish. And I got a story about that. And not about fishing, but about hunting. Yesterday we talked about whether we did any hunting or not. But I had a real informative dose when I was 16 years old. I did think that I wanted to hunt. I really thought I had it in my blood, and some other teenagers had influenced me. Oh, you want to hunt? I finally was able to buy myself a high-power rifle, a 30-30, and I actually snuck this from behind Mom and Dad's back. They didn't even know that I had it, but that was not a great thing when they found out. But anyway, I made a connection a couple of counties over from here. An older man gave me a ride over there, and I stayed with some other people. Of course, Mom and Dad didn't know that then. They let me go. They approved of it. Maybe not willingly, but they let me go. And I sat in the woods deer hunting for 3 days. I was 16 years old. I didn't have much money, but I had spent most of what I had on gas to travel there, and hunting license, deer tag, and all that. And I spent 3 days in the woods and never got a shot at anything. And at 16 years old, I was thoroughly burned out. I said, in my life, I'm going to go home and I'm going to raise my pigs and my beef, and I know I'm going to have something to eat. I'm not going to go sit in the woods and wait for some poor little old deer to come by to feed me and my family. So I got burned out with hunting at a very young age. And I've went wild boar hunting along with some others, mainly out of necessity, but I'm just not one that enjoys hunting. I know that I'm going to get to eat right here.
If you don't have any skill as a hunter, you better be a farmer.
Yeah.
You know some of that, Mark?
No, I've never drank a Red Bull. Never.
You know, Ben drinks them.
Does he?
Every once in a while.
Yeah. So Nathan, if you're ready, what I'd like for you to get started with, if you can get that grinder cleaned up and get it ready, I'm going to grind that lard, get it in the kettle, and get a fire going, because we're going to be adding more to it, because we got several steps to do to cook today, and we need to try to keep it all going. So if you could get that, I know you're well familiar with the grinder, and get it cleaned up, and I think that's some work we got to do a little later on. Let's see.
I got you.
Yeah, I don't know. This here, I don't know what that's to. That definitely don't fit in there, does it?
No, that's a number. I can take that.
But I think this is the one.
It is.
Is that it or this one? But they need a little cleaning up yet before we.
I think I sharpened both of these last time, so it won't matter.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you'll get them cleaned up, get them ready to go.
Let's do that one. I've got a piece of glass. It's a float glass, and I put sandpaper on. But the little ones, if you've got just a little grinder at home, if you've got a good flat stone, all you have to do is just, about 10 strokes, turn it about halfway or a quarter, 10 more. You just keep doing that, and it'll work those blades down. See how it's already making them shiny?
Gotcha.
So you work that until you get those flat. And then if you've got that same size one of those, see, this is too big, you can't use this, but you do exactly the same thing. Turn it, about 10 strokes, just like that. Turn it back. You just got to keep everything flat, because all that it's doing, it's just a perfectly flat mating surface. This is a whole plate, and this is the blade. So it just turns through there. That auger pushes the meat through there, and as it pushes through those holes, that just keeps cutting it off. You'll see how it all operates.
Tub right here. So this actually, the other two that I was doing were the shoulders. This is the ham. Traditionally, Dad used to cure a lot of hams for himself, and And he did help some of the other neighbors doing it. Even though he was not government legal to do it, he did do some bacon and ham curing. Our family has grown so fond of link sausage that since Dad's been gone, we have not cured any hams. I do have the recipe. It's basically the same the way that I'm going to do the bacon later on today here. But we are going to just debone all this and make sausage. And it just makes fantastic sausage when you use good ingredients, lots of meat, a little lard in it. Makes it tasty. And the whole family just loves that link sausage. Even the grandchildren, the ones that, how should I say it, turn up their nose about some of this other stuff, think they don't like it. Oh, gross, I'm not eating that. But everybody does like the link sausage. So that's what we're going to make out of these hams.
I've got us some link sausage out there we'll eat later.
Okay.
On the last one.
Okay. This would be some very nice ham to cure. I mean, look at the size of that thing, and so nice and lean. So the curing process, the recipe that Dad had, he called it sugar curing. So he used brown sugar, salt and pepper, a little bit of in one of these stainless steel tubs back here, and apply all that and leave it for, if the weather was cool enough, about 5 days in that, and then hang them in the smokehouse and smoke them. That combination and right temperatures, you can keep these hams for months and months. Even I hear people talking about keeping them for years, but this is what I say about sorghum. People tell me they bought a jug of sorghum for me a year ago, 2 years ago. I'm like, well, why have you still got it? Why don't you enjoy it and eat it instead of it sitting on the shelf, you know? And that's sort of the way it is with these hams. Why don't you get that thing down and slice it and enjoy some ham instead of aging it so long. But I do know that aging ham, it's like prosciutto. It just becomes more tender and more tasty to your palate, I guess, you know. Which it all has its place. And good cured ham, it's quite pricey. The progress he's made, right there's the shoulder blade. We're going to peel a little more meat off of that. Be careful, don't let your blade hit the table there. That really dulls it. So okay. What you can do is lay that on the lard so that your knife doesn't go through. You want me to sharpen it for you a little again?
Yeah.
Learned this from my dad. I see a lot of people going like this, but my dad did it like this, so fast that you couldn't hardly see it and wouldn't even look at you. And I've gotten fairly good at it. I think he was a bit faster than I am still, but he could sharpen that knife.
Fire going yet?
Nope, we're waiting on Nathan to get us some lard.
Okay.
And,
Put in there. If you're interested in a little trick, I'll show you one.
Yeah, show it.
If you turn this thing this way, when that stuff comes out, it won't splatter on the floor. It's just
We don't like lard splatter.
so Eddie,
no, yeah.
you're ready to work.
Well, yeah.
We'll let Nathan take care of that. If you will get started getting that out of there so that we can get all the lard in there.
Well, one of them mangalitas would come close. Was you here with us
Would
last
it?
time, Eddie?
Uh-oh.
Oh my goodness.
I'm not
Which
sure.
one made more lard than two of those other Yorkshires or whatever they were?
So do they just don't have that much meat, lean meat, or?
Yeah, that's kind of where it's at. Even the pork chops have a,
That's the reason that meat would be so much more tasty.
yeah.
Did you do this, Nathan, growing up? Is this something you did?
Yeah. We did a little different. We didn't, we skinned all of our hogs. And we didn't worry about lard or anything else for that matter. It was just more of a, kind of like skinning a deer.
Just after the meat, right?
Yep. I much prefer this way though, that you lose nothing the way that they do it.
I'm going to go over here now and get one of the bacons and start trimming the sides up. So my goal right here, right now, is to get everything lard related so that we can get the lard in the kettle and get it to rendering out. And then we'll have time while that's being rendered to get everything deboned and get all the red meat ground and make sausage. Got quite a pile of lard there, and all this lard did not come from this hog. We had saved some lard from some other hog killings that was not, it just wasn't worth doing at the other time, and we're just combining those lard, the fat, together now with this, and going to render out a much larger batch today instead of,
Simply because the pot's big, right?
because the pot is big, and you know, it's a lot of work to do. It's the same amount of work to do a little batch as it is a big batch, so we've saved up lard to make a bigger batch. So I'm picking up the bacon that we laid on the table here yesterday, and I'm bringing it back over here to this table, and I'm going to start trimming up the edges. And that's always been a very difficult thing for me, but I learned from Dad what I know. So, depending on how much bacon you like. Yesterday, we were talking about bacon and how we all like bacon. I'd like to make the whole hog into bacon and link sausage, but we can't. But there's a wide space here. Dad, even though this was a male hog, they still have nipples. But Dad always cut that off past those nipples. The last few times I have not. Generally, after the bacon is fried, you don't eat those nipples anyway unless you really like to. But it makes just as good a bacon, in my opinion, on this side where the nipples are, as it does on this side that's much leaner. Can you turn that leg over that way? Or let's move that out of the way. As this side where the pork chops were. So obviously right here, I'm going to start on this side. That is pretty lean meat. Actually should have been part of the pork chops, but you know, it's like we talked about yesterday. It is difficult to cut it just in the right place. And so we got just a little bit of real lean meat there for the pork chop. Now, if somebody wanted to, this would be some fine tenderloin to take home. If not, it's just going to go in the sausage pile, and it's going to go to link sausage. Oh, what fine link sausage it makes. So I'm just going to go over this side of it and just sort of trim up a little bit the loose stuff. And like separate red meat from fat somewhat. I mean, there's nothing wrong. It's pretty good, but I'm going to let you off the hook with that and start on another. I'll trim that up.
Go ahead and do this one?
Yeah, go ahead and do that one. And then right along here, I'm going to just sort of trim this off here, just sort of smooth that bacon off all the way along this edge.
You started to say there something, Mark. You said something, there's nothing wrong, and then I just wonder what you
I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't remember. Oh, there's nothing wrong with having meat in the bacon, you know, red meat in the bacon, which I think that just makes the bacon more wholesome. Oh yeah, now it's going good, right? Look at that. That's the way lard is supposed to be ground.
What about all the fat? Is that going to go in the lard?
That's just going to go in that fat is just going to go in the link sausage, because you don't want the link sausage too terribly lean. Multiple things going on here, and these young guys are fussing at each other.
Well, that's Nathan's fault.
So this end here, sort of, that is pretty well pure meat. I'm actually going to take a little bit of that out. That's a little bit too meaty for bacon. So I'm going to take a little of that off. And then I'm actually going to cut this end straight off right here. I'm going to cut it straight off all the way across. I'm not saying I know exactly all of it, but I am saying that we like bacon. And the bigger we can make these, the more bacon we got. I can't tell any difference whether it's the side where the nipples are on or the side that no nipples are on. You know. And that still has some skin pieces on it there. And Eddie is working on those skin pieces. He's working that around there and going to separate some of that. So we're all just working together here. Got our own little tasks right now and making this whole thing work. So I'm going to turn this around here like this. And Dad would have always said that this side right here, just pure fat, he would trim this back like this. Just cut this straight off right along this edge here, and then it gets in the bacon that has fat and meat in it. A little bit of loose stuff right there. My opinion, pretty nice bacon, a little bit bigger. Like I say, a lot of people, they would cut an edge off of that side where the nipples are. I'm not going to. It'll all make great bacon. So I'm going to take this back over to this table. This is ready. Later on, we're gonna cure this. Next, I'm going to do the jowl. This is the piece. This is the piece that came from under the hog's head. You can see the skin on this side. This is the mouth part, and it would have been under the hog's head, just like that. Called the jowl, spelled J-A-W-L, jowl. And so the same thing here. I'm just going to trim some of the loose stuff off of it. Traditionally, a lot of people here in the South, around the country, will eat jowl on New Year's Day. Jowl and black-eyed peas. Basically, I think the gist is it's poor folks' food. It's poor food. The black-eyed peas and the jowl is the lesser quality food, and eat it on New Year's Day, supposed to bring them good luck. I don't know if I believe any of that, but it has been traditional. But in my opinion, after it's cured, the jowl tastes no different than the bacon. I say it doesn't taste any different. I do know for a fact it is a little bit tougher, just a little bit tougher, but fantastic bacon.
So you're making bacon out of the jowls?
I'm making bacon out of the jowl.
Okay. So in a processing house, is that what you call it? Would they keep that part, or would they go?
I'm not sure. I don't know what's done with it. I don't know if you can buy jowl on the. Yeah, I've seen it in stores. Yeah, I've seen it in stores. I guess it's probably cured.
Pretty sure Kroger sells it.
Okay. Eddie seemed to think Kroger sells it. So now this end right here, that is under the mouth part right there. Not much on it. I am actually going to cut that off about right here. And Eddie will work on that a little bit, get a little bit of that meat off. And it's actually a pretty thick skin there, just not much, can't do much with it.
So on the bacon, you leave the skin on it?
We do.
Yes, for curing.
We do. Our family, Dad, that's the way Dad liked to do it. Now, if you take a pig to a slaughterhouse, they will not scald it like we did. They will skin the whole hog, and you won't have any of that skin on it, which is convenient. A lot of times after you fry the bacon, the sliced bacon with the skin on it, the skin is a bit tough. It's a bit tough to chew, but I will tell you one thing. After you've had it for breakfast and you put a wad of that bacon skin in your mouth, it's just like leave the house with just a wonderful chew in your mouth. A good taste that you chew for a while, it dissolves and you swallow it. I love it. I love it. Yeah. And so
the bacon's the only part you leave the skin on?
yes, the bacon is the only thing we leave the skin on. So you can see what Jacob is doing here. He's deboning that. And earlier I skinned those off. And if you'll see over there where Eddie is working, he is cutting those pieces into strips. And now then he is peeling the lard off of those skins.
Basically just skinning it.
So if you took that in consideration, you know, why don't you just skin the whole hog to start with? And Dad struggled with that and finally decided that the skin was so valuable on the bacon that it was worth leaving the skin on, doing the double work, and doing the double work and skin the rest of it. Because it, for some reason, in our opinion,
That's the way it looks after.
yeah, that's the way the skin looks. Now, you could make you can make pig skins with it. I mean, like what do you call it?
behind you.
Sorry.
Pork rinds. Yes, and you can go to these festivals and they're selling them everywhere. I mean, you can buy them in stores. I think Dollar General sells them, but we have never processed them. They get thrown under the table at the end. They get cleaned up and.
Well, the last ones I took home, I was gonna process them.
Yeah?
It's a big deal. You gotta boil them down and do a whole bunch of stuff and then bake them, so.
Okay, so we don't know anything about that. We've never done that.
We need to try it once.
Okay, so Nathan and Eddie, if y'all will help each other, if you could get that pot of lard going and get a fire going, and that way we can get that crackling.
Have we got enough for a pot full?
Oh, he's got a big tub full there,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, so we can be warming it up and then keep adding to it.
Right.
Heather, would you go get a roll of paper towel? We need to wipe that
Kettle.
that kettle out before we get started. Oh,
So I'm
that
just
was
trying to
fast.
see
Look
what-
here, Nathan. She just returned around and handed it to me.
It looks like you have plenty of help down here. We're gonna make some cracklings and such, and we're getting lunch ready and stuff.
Okay.
Do you need us to come
If
fast?
right now, if somebody,
What you need for that?
of course, our table is full. I was going to say we've got a lot of deboning to do here. Jacob is working on that, but it won't be long, and Eddie will be finished with that. And we've got plenty of help right now, I think.
Hey,
Yep.
Heather, tell my wife there's bacon and leg sausage in my truck. She can thaw it out.
I'm going to trim just a little bit more. Jacob, let me borrow your knife. I don't know. I'm going to have to take my knife back out to the grinder. It's just not cutting, and yours is not very good either.
Eddie, you got any complaints over there?
Ain't worth complaining about.
Eddie, right there's a little piece that needs to be skinned. Let me go get a sharpener. I'm going to have to do a little sharpening. I think I got one out here in my truck.
Or if there's a stone and a steel right there, I don't know if you need it.
Well, I'm gonna go back and see what everybody's doing.
Okay.
Good talking to you.
Good talking to you too.
Have them ready for those slaughter dates, and then
So you want those weighed out?
What you call that's what comes out. And it comes out through.
Brandon good now. Had a little trouble with it this morning, and it's in there from a previous butchering. But so this is the pure lard here from where we earlier this morning we were cutting up more than 2 buckets.
One, yeah, it's looking like it might be.
So I'm gonna say it's a fair 100 pounds.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's enough.
Okay, so you do this times 10?
Put a stick out in here to reload it. Not bad. Wipe it out. It's gonna be pretty clean.
No, I'm not holding your hand if you're grabbing it.
In about an hour, we'll put just a little bit more wood on it. Okay, it's already taking on us to put these cracklings into those jars. So the jars are already clean, and put the cracklings in there. This being this hot, they can themselves. Yes, no, and you don't have to what they call hot water bath them or pressure cooker them.
Of course, you know, there's homemade lard in it, so that's the oil we used for this recipe. Was the homemade lard with the cracklins. So the most important thing about using a cast iron skillet and cornbread is you want your skillet hot. So we're gonna go ahead and put this in the oven.